Hello, everyone. Happy and welcome back to the Koala English Podcast. I'm Anthony. How are you today? We're so happy you're here with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha. I'm doing great. Thank you. Today, we have a fascinating topic, culture.
Culture isn't just where we come from. It's how we think, how we behave, what we eat, how we dress, and even how we share our opinions.
Exactly. People around the world have different habits, traditions, beliefs, and ways of communicating. Understanding these differences helps us connect better with others.
In this episode, we'll explore cultures from different countries, talking about everyday topics like food, greetings, family life, religion, clothing, and social behavior, all in clear, practical English.
We'll also teach useful words, phrases, and expressions you can use when talking about culture, sharing opinions politely, and asking questions respectfully.
You'll hear mini conversations, real-life examples, and cultural tips to avoid misunderstandings and communicate naturally with people from different backgrounds.
Whether you're traveling, working with international colleagues, or just curious about the world, this episode is for you.
If you enjoy this episode, click the like button. It really supports our channel.
And if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes on real-life English and meaningful topics.
All right, let's explore the world through language and culture together. Let's get started.
First, let's learn some essential words you can use when talking about culture, behavior, and social norms. We'll give clear definitions, repeat the words for memory, and provide examples.
Cultural norms.
Cultural norms.
Cultural norms are the unwritten rules or standards that guide how people behave in a society. They include everyday habits, gestures, communication styles, and what is considered polite or impolite in specific situations. Cultural norms help people feel comfortable and safe because everyone knows what is expected.
Examples. In some cultures, people avoid speaking loudly in public, or in some cultures, offering tea to guests is a common custom.
Social expectations.
Social expectations.
Social expectations are the behaviors that a society or community anticipates from individuals. These can relate to work, family, school, or public behavior. Following social expectations helps maintain harmony, while ignoring them may cause discomfort or misunderstanding.
Examples. Social expectations at school include raising your hand before speaking, or arriving on time is part of social expectations at most workplaces.
Open-minded.
Open-minded.
Being open-minded means being willing to consider new ideas, experiences, and ways of living without judgment. Open-minded people try to understand different perspectives before forming opinions, which is especially important when encountering new cultures.
Examples. Traveling to different countries helped her become more open-minded, or an open-minded teacher listens to students' opinions even if they differ from their own.
Stereotype.
Stereotype.
A stereotype is a fixed and often unfair idea about a group of people. It usually ignores individual differences and can lead to prejudice or misunderstandings. Stereotypes often come from media, history, or limited personal contact with a culture.
Examples. Assuming all French people are romantic is a stereotype, or stereotypes about men and women in certain jobs are not always true.
Identity.
Identity.
Identity is how a person sees themselves and feels connected to certain groups, cultures, or traditions. It includes factors like language, family, religion, values, and personal experiences. Identity can change and grow over time, especially when someone moves to a new country or experiences different cultures.
Examples. Speaking a native language is an important part of cultural identity, or participating in traditional festivals helps maintain a strong sense of identity.
Traditionally.
Traditionally.
Traditionally refers to actions, beliefs, or customs that have existed for a long time and are passed down through generations. It highlights continuity in cultural practices and values.
Examples. Traditionally, elders are respected and consulted in family decisions, or this meal is traditionally prepared for special celebrations.
Acceptable.
Acceptable.
Acceptable refers to behavior, actions, or practices that are considered appropriate, normal, or okay within a culture or situation. What is acceptable can vary depending on social norms, the environment, or the people involved.
Examples. Wearing casual clothes at home is acceptable, or bringing a small gift when visiting someone's house is acceptable in many cultures.
Offensive.
Offensive.
Offensive describes words, actions, or gestures that may hurt, insult, or anger someone. Something that is normal in one culture can be offensive in another, so understanding cultural differences is important.
Examples. Pointing with a finger can be offensive in some countries, or making jokes about religion may be offensive to some people.
Appropriate.
Appropriate.
Appropriate means behavior or actions that are suitable, fitting, or proper for a particular situation, place, or social context. What is appropriate depends on culture, social roles, age, or setting.
Examples. Using a polite tone is appropriate when addressing elders, or wearing formal clothes is appropriate for weddings or business meetings.
Perspective.
Perspective.
Perspective is how someone understands, interprets, or sees the world. Our perspective is shaped by culture, experiences, education, and personal values. Seeing things from another person's perspective can help reduce misunderstandings and build empathy.
Examples. From a cultural perspective, greeting everyone formally makes sense because respect is valued. Or from a cultural perspective, speaking directly may seem aggressive in some countries.
Confusion.
Confusion.
Confusion happens when people do not understand each other clearly. It often occurs when communication styles, expectations, or cultural norms differ. Recognizing potential confusion helps prevent misunderstandings.
Examples. Different greetings caused confusion during the international conference, or new students felt confusion when the teacher used slang expressions.
Integration.
Integration.
Integration is the process of becoming part of a new society while still respecting your original culture and identity. Successful integration involves understanding the new culture, communicating respectfully, and participating in social life. Joining local clubs helps with integration, or participating in traditional festivals supports newcomers' integration. Now, let's focus on some really useful phrases you can use when talking about culture. We'll explain them in detail, why they are polite, and give practical examples so you can use them naturally in conversations.
In some cultures, it is common to...
This phrase is a neutral and polite way to describe typical behaviors or customs in a particular culture. It's very useful because it lets you explain differences without judging them as right or wrong. You can also use it to compare your own culture with another.
For example, in some cultures, it is common to remove your shoes before entering a house. Or in some cultures, it is common to greet elders with a bow instead of a handshake.
Right. See how that doesn't sound judgmental? It's a very safe and polite way to talk about cultural differences.
This behavior may be seen as rude or disrespectful.
This uses phrases to politely point out that a certain action might not be acceptable in a culture, even if it seems normal elsewhere. The word may softens the sentence, so it's not accusing anyone.
Examples: speaking loudly in a library may be seen as rude or disrespectful, or interrupting someone while they are speaking may be seen as rude or disrespectful in some countries.
Exactly, and it's great for conversations where you want to be careful not to offend anyone.
From a cultural perspective, this makes sense because...
This phrase helps you explain why a behavior or custom exists without judging it. It shows understanding of cultural norms and traditions.
For example, from a cultural perspective, offering tea to guests makes sense because hospitality is highly valued. Or, from a cultural perspective, avoiding eye contact with elders makes sense because it shows respect.
Yes, it's perfect for discussions or when describing why people act differently in another culture.
People may react differently depending on their background.
This shows awareness that the same situation can produce different reactions depending on someone's culture, education, or personal experiences.
Examples: people may react differently depending on their background when asked personal questions, or people may react differently depending on their background when receiving feedback about their work.
Using this phrase makes you sound thoughtful and respectful, especially in multicultural conversations.
It's important to avoid making assumptions about others.
This phrase encourages respectful communication. It reminds us not to judge people based on appearance, nationality, or cultural background.
Examples: it's important to avoid making assumptions about others based on their accent, or it's important to avoid making assumptions about others based on their clothing or traditions.
Absolutely. It's all about keeping an open mind and showing respect.
Learning about cultural differences helps reduce conflict.
When you understand different traditions, behaviors, and social expectations, you are less likely to misunderstand or upset others. This is especially useful in workplaces, schools, or travel situations.
Examples: learning about cultural differences helps reduce conflict in international teams. Or learning about cultural differences helps reduce conflict when living in a new country.
See, these phrases aren't just vocabulary, they're tools for respectful communication. You can talk about culture, differences, and behavior clearly, politely, and naturally.
And yes, using them in real conversations actually helps you understand people better, avoid misunderstandings, and not sound clueless.
Definitely. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to sound confident and polite, whether you're talking about Japan, Nigeria, Uruguay, or anywhere else. Sam, an Australian Lao worker, talks with Yuki, a Japanese colleague. They work in the same factory.
Hi, Yuki. Mind if I sit here?
Sure.
I'm planning a trip to Japan soon. I really want to understand Japanese culture. I guess people follow strict cultural norms, right?
Yes, polite, careful, observe others.
Do you think social expectations are strong in schools and at work? Like people must behave in a certain way.
Yes, expected. Follow rules, respect hierarchy.
I've heard that Japanese people often bow when greeting, so in some cultures it is common to bow instead of shaking hands.
Yes, bow polite, expected.
I see. And staying quiet before talking to new people. I guess this behavior may be seen as rude or disrespectful in other countries.
Yes, may seem strange. Careful, not hurt feelings.
That makes sense. From a cultural perspective, this makes sense because respect and harmony are very important, right?
Yes, respect, harmony, important.
At first, I was confused by the quietness, but I understand that people may react differently depending on their background. Some foreigners might find it unusual.
Yes, different views, careful assumptions.
Right, so it's also important to avoid making assumptions about others, like thinking everyone is the same or follows the same rules.
Yes, observe, patient, respect others.
Japanese food seems amazing. Sushi, ramen. I guess traditionally, meals are simple, fresh, and well presented.
Yes, simple, fresh, traditional.
I imagine certain things are acceptable, like bowing or speaking softly, but being loud might be offensive.
Yes, polite, loud, offensive sometimes.
So it's about doing what's appropriate in each situation, depending on context and people.
Yes, careful, appropriate.
Learning about all this really helps me see another perspective on behavior and culture.
Yes, perspective, understand.
It seems like without understanding these customs, people could get confused or misunderstand each other.
Yes, confusion happens, careful.
I guess integration in Japanese workplaces or social life requires patience, respect, and observing these rules carefully.
Yes, integration, careful, respect culture.
Wow. So Japanese culture mixes politeness, careful observation, and respect for rules, while Lao culture balances respect with emotional expression.
Yes, quiet, careful, respect makes sense.
Listening to you really shows that learning about cultural differences helps reduce conflict, whether at work, school, or traveling.
Yes, learning reduces conflict, understand others.
Amina is a Nigerian Muslim worker, and she's talking with Camila, who's from Uruguay. They both work in the same warehouse in Australia.
They're both unmarried. Hi, Amina. Can I join you for lunch? Of course, Camila. I'd be happy to have lunch together. I've always been curious about your religion and culture. Could you tell me a bit about your daily life and traditions? Sure. I'm from Nigeria and I follow Islam. In my culture, people follow social expectations like praying 5 times a day, dressing modestly, and wearing a hijab. Traditionally, we marry someone of the same religion. From a cultural perspective, this makes sense because respecting faith and family is very important. That's fascinating. So at work, you still wear your hijab? Yes. It is acceptable to wear comfortable clothes, but I always wear my hijab. I know this behavior may be seen as rude or disrespectful in some countries, but here it is understood and respected. People may react differently depending on their background, so I try to act in a way that avoids confusion and misunderstandings. In Uruguay, people often marry outside of religion. Clothing is more casual and religion is more private. That's very different from what you described. Yes, cultures have different norms and expectations, so it's important to avoid making assumptions about others. Integrating into a new workplace or country requires patience and respect for both my faith and the rules of the environment. I can see that. Learning about these differences really helps us understand people better. Exactly. Being open-minded, observing, and listening carefully helps reduce conflict. Learning about cultural differences helps reduce conflict and builds respect and stronger relationships with others. It's amazing how even very different cultures can work together if we show respect and understanding. Absolutely. Respect, careful observation, and understanding different perspectives are the keys to good communication and avoiding confusion in multicultural settings.
Now that we've listened to our dialogues, let's quickly review the words and phrases we practiced today.
We focused on vocabulary that helps explain culture and behavior, like cultural norms, social expectations, identity, perspective, and integration.
We also practiced useful phrases for talking about differences politely, such as, in some cultures it is common to. This behavior may be seen as rude or disrespectful, and from a cultural perspective, this makes sense because.
Plus, we learned ways to show understanding, like people may react differently depending on their background, and it's important to avoid making assumptions about others.
Using these phrases helps you explain cultural behaviors naturally, show respect, and avoid misunderstandings.
Practicing them regularly makes it easier to talk about any culture, whether it's Japan, Laos, Nigeria, Uruguay, or anywhere else in the world.
In Japan and many East Asian countries, people often hide emotions in public and avoid direct conflict. Politeness, respect for hierarchy, and careful observation of others' feelings are highly valued, whether at work, school, or social settings. People tend to think carefully before speaking and avoid making others feel embarrassed.
In Nigerian and other African cultures, community, family, and religion play a central role in daily life. People often prioritize respect for elders, follow religious practices, and dress modestly. Behaviors are influenced by both tradition and personal values, and there is a strong emphasis on social harmony, hospitality, and collective decision-making.
In European countries like Germany, France, and the UK, people value punctuality, direct communication, and independence. They often express opinions openly and expect clarity in conversations while respecting personal boundaries. Behaviors and thinking are shaped by both historical traditions and modern social norms, so people carefully balance individuality with community expectations.
In Australia and New Zealand, people generally value friendliness, equality, and informality. Communication tends to be relaxed and straightforward, and humor is often used to build rapport. People usually respect personal space, but are open to casual conversation, whether at work, school, or social gatherings. Independence and a can-do attitude are admired, while teamwork and fairness are also emphasized.
In the United States and Canada, people value individual freedom, personal achievement, and direct communication. Expressing opinions openly and advocating for oneself is common, and people often think in terms of personal responsibility and self-reliance. In Canada, politeness and inclusivity are especially important, while in the U.S., optimism and goal-oriented thinking are emphasized. Both cultures are diverse, so behaviors and opinions can vary widely depending on regional and cultural backgrounds.
In South American countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, people tend to value warmth, social connection, and family ties. Communication is often expressive, using gestures and emotions openly. People enjoy social gatherings, music, and shared meals. Relationships and personal connections are important, so people may spend more time building trust before discussing business or formal matters. Hospitality, friendliness, and emotional openness are highly appreciated, and people often balance respect for tradition with a relaxed approach to daily life.
Understanding these differences helps you navigate multicultural environments more confidently. By observing behaviors, respecting perspectives, and being aware of how people think, communicate, and express opinions, you can avoid misunderstandings, communicate politely, and build strong relationships across the world. Thanks for listening. We're so glad you're learning English and exploring cultures with us.
We hope today helps you talk about cultural differences confidently, whether it's traditions, religion, behaviors, or social norms.
Share your cultural experiences or questions in the comments. We love hearing how people from different countries live and work.
Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, English improves when you explore real-life situations, including culture.
See you next time on the Koala English Podcast. Keep an open mind, respect perspectives, and happy learning.